Stunning news in the college sports world involving one of the all-time greats. We've got to cover it. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Gametime. I am your host, Cam Stewart, and yeah, you've all seen it by now. Major bombshell news coming out of the world of college sports. I mean, one of the greats is saying goodbye, and it really is. It's a shell shock. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, when you see the news that Dantwan Grimes is leaving Baylor and entering the transfer portal, you know where you are. And it's a moment in history. And look, I'm a big fan of Dantwan, and oh, wow. Nick Saban is retiring. Whoa. Where did this come from? Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, is retiring. I mean, how many bombshells can you have in one day? Whew. Guys, that changes a lot. Wow. Now, look, I mean, this has been what? 3 years since Alabama's won a national championship. That's a long time around there. And with Nick Saban gone, I wonder if they try to really go outside the box and reverse course on the type of coach they have. I mean, clearly the tactician, field general, great with the media, very vocal at times, hard butt head coach was not working. So does Alabama dig down deep and go with a detail-oriented, another defensive side of the ball guy who's a little more mercurial and careful with his words? Does Alabama go for Dave Aranda? Look, I'm just going to say this straight up. There ain't no discounts for you, Dave. Okay? Alabama is going to have to pay up fair and square if they want your services, because we are going to drive a hard bargain if they want to bring you to Tuscaloosa. Don't think it's just going to be easy. Oof. Is that a direction Alabama goes? Do they try to lure their defensive coordinator out of retirement with Kevin Steele and look at his record as a head coach and think, boy, that's someone we could certainly bring in? Alabama has a good history of bringing in coaches from the state of Texas. First it was Bear Bryant. Now it could be Dave Aranda. It could be Kevin Steele. It could be Matt Rule. Look, people are clamoring for the Baylor connection. But wow, this is huge. This is huge. And if and when, it's just a matter of when Alabama brings in Dave Aranda, do you think Saban, like Brady, gets the itch to come back and all of a sudden his job at Alabama's gone, but there's a vacancy at Baylor? Is there a pipeline for Nick Saban to be coaching at Baylor next year? Sound off down in the comments below. This is huge. I've got to stick with the bigger news, though, of Dantwan Grimes leaving Baylor. He announced that on Twitter yesterday, that he will be entering the transfer portal with 2 years of eligibility, by the way. That's a nice little prospect for some team. This one was too bad. Dantwan, I really like his game. Now, when you look at it purely from a roster standpoint, there is a logjam. Obviously this year, but even looking forward at the guard position. They bring in Jaden Nunn this year, whose profile is a lot like Dantwan Grimes, it sounds like. And clearly he is the preferred guard there. Dantwan was working back his way into the lineup, took a redshirt year last year to really hone his craft, work on his game. And Scott Drew was very complimentary of that decision from Dantwan Grimes, because he was a guy who showed out in Canada. You remember that last summer of 22, when they played in whatever that Global Jam tournament, I think is what it was called. He had some big games in Canada, some double-digit scoring games, and we were like, boy, hold on to your seats. Here comes Dantwan Grimes, the next great transfer guard to come in at Baylor. And he takes the redshirt year. I think disappointing from a fan standpoint, but certainly one where you're like, wow, what a mature decision. He is going to be really integrated as a part of this group, and just hasn't found the minutes this year. Had a couple of games where he plays double-digit minutes, but none of them against Power 5 competition. 17 against Mississippi Valley, 10 against Northwestern State, 13 against Kansas City, 14 against John Brown. When it came to the big games, he wasn't out there. Played 2 minutes against Auburn in game 1. Played 7 against Michigan State in a blowout, 8 against Duke. And he didn't even appear in the last 2 games. As a matter of fact, the conference games against Oklahoma State, BYU, last time out for him was against Cornell, where he played 6 minutes. So, yeah, just a guy who wasn't seeing the court enough. And it really is a logjam at guard when you think about but both guard positions, Ray J. Dennis and Jaden Nunn and Miro Little coming off the bench. And he's certainly a guy with an eye towards the future as well. Langston Love has put together some great performances off the bench for Baylor. It just feels like, although there's plenty of upside with Dantwan Grimes, and I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, that it just probably he wasn't going to get a ton of shine here. Similar to Dale Bonner last year, who obviously did play a lot more than Grimes did this year, but I think he was looking down the line and saying, I don't know exactly where and how I fit in here. And I think that's what Dantwan Grimes is probably saying too. Of course, you look at next year with no Ray J. Dennis, but you also will have Miro Little and Rob Wright at guard. And so it just doesn't look like a slam dunk future in terms of playing time for him. So he's going to go somewhere. I mean, he had some decent, some good mid-major interest out of Kilgore, where he played at junior college, and also had an offer from Oklahoma State for Mike Boynton that he was weighing before committing to Baylor. And he's going to make a team very happy. I think he's still a legit two-way guard who can play serious minutes in the Power 5 and can shoot the rock a little bit too. I hope it's not in the Big 12. If Mike Boynton is at Oklahoma State still next year, that's a guy he would love. We just saw the playing style from Oklahoma State on Saturday. Didn't necessarily carry over in their game a couple nights ago against Texas Tech, where they got blown out. But they would love to play some in-your-face kind of defense and need to improve shooting, as it seems like they do every year. So be careful with that. Be careful with keep an eye on that, whether Mike Boynton goes hard after Dantwan Grimes again. I hope he's not in the Big 12, because I think he's going to be a pest to play against. But certainly the best and most tenacious guards in the nation are playing in this conference. So we'll see how that goes for Dantwan Grimes. I saw some people, really not a lot, in the comments of that tweet saying he bailed on the midseason. That's the way college basketball is and college football is these days. He is making a decision for what's best for himself, which is probably what he did last year with the red shirt, both for himself and the team. And now he is saying, I've put some good tape out there. I had some good interest. I know my game, and a lot of coaches in the nation know my game. I'm not going to put the risk out there of picking up an injury. Also gives a chance for Baylor to develop some guys who are going to be around next year. I just don't see it as a selfish thing. And I wish him the best. I think he's going to, like I said, I think he's going to play big minutes for a big time program next year. And that it's a bummer for Baylor, but it's going to be big for him and his career, and Baylor will push on. They did get some good commitments on the football side of things, which hasn't been something we say all the time for Baylor. So big positives on that front coming up.